Real YouTubers start the song higher than they intended, but it turned out okay. Not the intro I meant to do, but the intro I did. Hello, it's your guy who is very sunburned, and hopefully the camera doesn't show it because I'm definitely peeling. Anyway, how's everyone doing today on this fine winter evening? I'm actually recording this in December of 2007, so I don't know when I'm going to post it. But anyway, so there I was, thinking about the fact that the format's going to change very soon. Very, very soon, actually. In less than a week, the format's going to change and become VGC2020 Series 6. Now, this is relevant because there's some big changes going into play over the next week. Namely, over 10 Pokemon are being banned from the format. The top 10 most popular VGC Pokemon and the top 10 most popular Pokemon in singles are being banned from the format. Now, I saw a couple people, I've talked about this kind of topic, this general topic, a couple of times, and something that I noticed several times kind of coming up was, a common theme that I noticed was that people were saying, oh man, I just built this new team and now I can't use it, or oh my god, my whole team, was all removed. So something I thought could be interesting, and of course it's not going to be perfect, but something I thought could be interesting is talking about maybe some potential replacements for Pokemon that are removed. Now, I'm just going to go ahead and preface this by saying it's hard. It's really hard to replace these Pokemon because a lot of them are unique. So some approximations are better than others, but keep in mind that you can't just really take these Pokemon and slap them in on your team in most cases and expect it to work the same way. You're definitely going to do a little bit more legwork. But if you're confused about where to go, and if there's a role that one specific Pokemon was filling that maybe you want to keep the same structure of the team and maybe just look to change out one Pokemon, you could at least consider. Again, this is not going to be perfect by any means, but I think it could, in some cases, it could actually, still work. In other cases, it won't be as good, but I'll tell you when I personally think that things are not as good. So I've only covered the 10 Pokemon that were top 10 in VGC usage here. We'll just go through them one at a time. The first one's Incineroar. Incineroar is a Pokemon that is known for just being a great support Pokemon, but also not being limited to only support. We've already seen weakness policy in Incineroar this format. Typical moves are Fake Out, Parting Shot, Flare Blitz, and a Dark move. Lash Out or Darkest Lariat or Snarl are normally your go-to ones. It has some other good moves as well. I've seen Earthquake. I've seen Thunder Punch. I don't think Thunder Punch is phenomenal. You can run U-Turn if you're running Assault Vest over Parting Shot. You can run Snarl, like I mentioned. Bulldoze, in theory, could be used. It gets close combat now, which is kind of a big deal. So it's got good moves, but basically this is kind of your typical bulky Fire-type Intimidate support Pokemon. Good defensive stats across the board, a low speed stat, but yeah, overall good stats. The closest thing that you're going to get to Incineroar is Argonine, in my opinion. Argonine is also an intimidating Fire-type Pokemon. It loses some of the benefits of being Dark-type, and its bulk is slightly worse, but it is faster, which means you typically are going to run Will-O-Wisp on it, you can run Helping Hand on it, you can run Snarl. It does not get Fake Out. However, it doesn't necessarily need it, and this is a format where Fake Out is less important, so if you were going to use, another, the Pokemon that's closest to Incineroar, and it's a relatively good approximation, is Arcanine. They do different things, they're not the same Pokemon, but it's pretty close. If you really want, an Intimidate Fake Out Pokemon, you can also consider Scrafty and Hitmontop. With the removal of Togekiss, these Pokemon should be a little stronger as well, but if you want, in general, Arcanine is going to be the closest thing you will get to your Incineroar now that it's been banned. Thank you, buy my merch. Togekiss is the next one. So Togekiss dominated the whole format. This approximation is not phenomenal, but it's not horrible either. Effectively, Togekiss normally did two things. It was either a support set with Follow Me, Protect. Actually, they didn't even just run Protect. Follow Me, Yawn, Helping Hand, Safeguard, Air Slash, Dazzling Gleam. Good speed stat, really good bulk, great typing. Mostly supportive, could be annoying in lots of different ways. Also had access to Dynamaxing and Scope Lens. So Scope Lens Super Luck means half your moves will crit, meaning you can Dynamax your Togekiss and have it be actually offensive in addition to already having Follow Me for support. So it's a versatile Pokemon. It's been the most popular Pokemon in the metagame for a while now. It's a good Pokemon. I should say one of the most popular, not necessarily the most popular. I would say the closest thing you're going to get to Togekiss is probably Clefairy. It loses out on the offensive capabilities. You're never going to Dynamax Clefairy, and it helps you well with it. But it gains some defensive things. For example, it has access to Friend Guard, which is a great ability. Because you're not attacking with it, you can have, for example, Togekiss didn't always run Helping Hand, but Clefairy almost always will have it. Protect, Helping Hand, Follow Me, and one more. Sing, Moonblast, Icy Wind, Life Dew in theory could work, stuff like that. But yeah, basically this is going to be the closest you're going to get. It's like basically like purely the support aspects of Togekiss. You can't run a berry. You can't run any items, so you can't run Babbery Berry. You can't run Focus Sash or anything like that. But it's pretty close. The other thing you consider is Amoonguss, who uses Rage Powder instead of Follow Me, which is strictly worse. There's no reason that you'd use Rage Powder over Follow Me, except not everything gets Follow Me. Amoonguss in general is a better Pokemon. It can be disruptive. Spore is a phenomenal attack. Regenerator is a great ability. These two are kind of going to be the premier redirectors in the format. Now that Indeedee and Togekiss are gone. So yeah, I think Amoonguss isn't bad either. Like, you just lose the offensive power, basically, of offensive Togekiss. But in a support set, Amoonguss and Clefairy are pretty good approximations. Yeah. I feel like we should also use this opportunity to talk about Indeedee. I'm going to say the same thing about Indeedee. You also use either Clefairy or Amoonguss for Indeedee female. That was one that was popular in top 10, so that's one that was removed. I thought about talking about other potential ways to activate Psychic Terrain, but, like, frankly, Psychic Surge is the only real way you're going to want to consistently do this. You don't want to use the move Psychic Terrain, and you certainly don't want to use, like, Max Psychic consistently. So, yeah, like, yeah. So there's not really a replacement for the Terrain Setter. Like, the remaining Terrain Setters are Weezing and Pincurchin, and I can't in good confidence say you should use those, truthfully. So, yeah. Yeah, so that's Indeedee female. Like, you're going to want Clefairy or Amoonguss for the reasons I just said. Next up is Rillaboom. This one is, there's not really a great approximation for this one. This is one of the ones, the offensive Pokemon I think are harder to replace rather than defensive ones. Basically, Rillaboom gave you Grassy Terrain with Grassy Surge. It gave you a really strong priority attack with, Grassy Terrain boosted Grassy Glide. It gave you Fake Out, it gave you Knockoff, all really good things. It could have Taunt, it could run Assault Vest, it could run Choice Band, it could be offensive, it could be defensive. Great stats, great ability, had its unique Gigantamax form. I would say this one's hard to replace. Things that I can recommend, if you want kind of like one of the best grass types remaining, you consider Ferrothorn. It's not going to play in the same way at all, but if your team really wants kind of like a grass type, like if you were running Assault Vest Rillaboom and you felt really strongly about a grass type, I think Ferrothorn could work. It can run Assault Vest, it can run Setup with Iron Defense, Body Press, Leech Seed, Protect, or a different move set. You can run just like standard Leech Seed, Protect, Dual Stab. A lot of good options there. And, you know, Torquel and Incineroar are both removed, so Ferrothorn should get better. In terms of stats and like speed tier, so Arena is probably going to be the closest one. It hasn't seen a lot of success here. I can't really recommend it, but they did just give it Triple Axle, which is interesting. It also has a good support ability in Queenly Majesty. This is kind of like probably in stats the closest to Rillaboom. Similar speed stats, similar like overall stats. I actually didn't even look, but my gut says that yeah, they have similar offensive stats. And it can be a good Dynamax target as well. If you want something faster, you can use Virizion as a grass type. Like, none of these are great approximations, but if you were like really enjoying the priority of Grassy Glide and the grass typing, you can try Virizion, who's going to be one of the fastest remaining Pokemon left after these cuts. Virizion's a solid Pokemon. It's not the best Musketeer of the three, but against certain teams it can be super strong. Typically you want to run with Beat Up, Leaf Blade, Close Combat, Protect, and probably Bounce if I had to guess. So you can Dynamax it, but there are other things you can do as well. You can run Kobe Berry. It's very specially bulky, so like the stats aren't bad. The real thing is its low attack stat. With Dynamax and Swords Dance or Beat Up, you could probably circumvent that. The last thing that I can recommend that I actually think is a decent replacement for Rillaboom, although they don't play that similarly at all. If you really enjoyed the priority, I think maybe we could take a look at Conkeldurr again. Although Tyranitar is gone, Life Orb Iron Fist boosted Mach Punch is really strong, and I know that when I was using Conkeldurr earlier in the season, I really enjoyed kind of the power of Iron Fist Mach Punch with Life Orb or with other items as well. So if you wanted kind of like a strong physical attacker with a good priority move, I think Conkeldurr is something you could consider. Yeah. Next up we have Tyranitar. This is another tough one. Tyranitar is very unique as one of the best sand setters. It's the best sand setter, and which is like phenomenal stats, like really some of the best stats in the entire game. Normally a physical attacker investing in bulk and attack. It could be fast though. You can run speed, you can run Dragon Dance. There's not a great replacement for Tyranitar. I mean, obviously things you can consider are Jigglypuff. Like, if you really were building around sand, even though they removed Extra, I don't know why you would, but if you really wanted sand, this is like a bad approximation, but it is an approximation. Like, it's kind of close. I honestly don't recommend Jigglypuff, but if you're like a sandstorm player and you really want to use sand, that's all you got left, you know. They even took away Hippowdon, so yeah, it's not a great replacement. It does have Sandstream, so like that's good. But other than that, I think that like it's just the stats are nowhere near as good. It's so much slower. It can't really fight outside of Trick Room consistently. Special defense is much worse than... Wait, is it much worse? Yeah, it should be. Trick Room's got like 100 or something. Yeah. So like way less. The HP is less. The attack is maybe more, maybe less, maybe the same. Like the stats are, it has one Tyranitar has 1 less attack and like 20 less defense, but like way more speed, way more special defense, more HP, more special attack. It's a bad approximation, and you don't have a dark type, which is actually pretty good. So, yeah, Jigglypuff, it's fine. If you want a Pokemon with better stats, I would actually recommend Rhyperior. I think Rhyperior is like an okay approximation. You still get Stand Up if you Dynamax, and like in terms of stats and coverage and power, it's much stronger. The speed is a little faster than Jigglypuff as well. This is like if you were using Weakness Policy, Lash Out Tyranitar, maybe consider Rhyperior again, especially now that Rillaboom is gone. I think Rhyperior can make a resurgence. As you can see, the stats are better. The special defense is still Garbo, but like they play differently, but I feel like Rhyperior is the closest thing you're going to get to Tyranitar. Another thing you can consider is actually Tarakion. With the removal of Cinderachi, Rillaboom, and also Dragapult, I do think that Tarakion should be pretty strong now. So, if you wanted like an offensive Rock-type Pokemon, or if you're running like fast Choice Band Tyranitar or Sash Fast Tyranitar, I think you could consider Tarakion. I don't think it's not perfect, but it's gonna give you that Rock-type coverage. I mean, they run basically 2 of the same offensive types in Rock and Fighting. Tyranitar normally runs Superpower, so yeah. And this thing also pairs with Beat Up. I think Tarakion should be pretty strong in the format. Yeah. Next up is Dragapult. It's like, this is a really hard one for me. This is the one that I have the hardest time approximating. Basically, this is just like, it's a super fast Pokemon that can't be intimidated and has really powerful stab moves that like to max. Doesn't have to max, it really likes to. Can run Weakness Policy, can run Life Orb. This is the one that I had the hardest time approximating. I would say you can consider Tarakion as a replacement for it. Like I just mentioned, it's a fast physical attacker that can get stronger with Beat Up, specifically Beat Up Tarakion to kind of circumvent Intimidates and stuff. I also think maybe Porygon Z is a decent replacement for this thing. Porygon Z doesn't have the speed, but it has more of the power. Max Strike is, from coming off Hyper Beam, is insane with adaptability. You can't intimidate it, and although it's not naturally like the fastest thing, it's got really nice base stat, 90, excuse me, and like after a Hyper Beam, your opponent's slower as well. So like you kind of like are trading like power buffs and bulk buffs for speed buffs. Whereas because Dragapult will drop defense and attack with its stab, and Porygon Z will drop speed. So this Dragapult is a really hard one to approximate. I think Porygon Z is okay. Cinderachi is next. This is the other one that I think I have the hardest trouble with, or the hardest time with. The thing about Cinderachi is that it's not like I can just say like, oh, just use a fast fire type, right? Because the thing about it is that it's not a fire type, it's an every type Pokemon. So Cinderachi provided a lot of good coverage with its stab, which is everything. It didn't often even run a fire type move, which makes this even harder to approximate, but it would normally run Steel with Iron Head, Sucker Punch, High Jump Kick, Bounce, and then Pyro Ball. It would run 5 of those 6. Or 4 of those 5, excuse me. It's a hard one to approximate. Again, I feel like Tarakion, Cobalion, those faster Pokemon, anything faster is a decent approximation. I would also say maybe Urshifu is like kind of close. It's like a strong physical attacker that can crit. It's not as fast, but the metagame with the loss of these Pokemon gets a little slower. Like Dark type Urshifu that can crit is like okay, and maybe you run Sucker Punch, which doesn't even get Sucker Punch. Yeah, maybe you run Sucker Punch or Aqua Jet on it as well. It's not a great approximation, I'll be completely honest. Like Cinderachi's ability to boost its speed with max flying, like honestly maybe Cobalion. Like now that I think about it a little bit more, I honestly think Cobalion might be the closest thing. Like you don't get the immediate power, but you still get Fighting and Steel, which most of them ran, and Flying. So you basically just lose Sucker Punch for Protect or whatever 4th move you want to run. If you're Assault Vest, maybe Stone Edgers and Headbutt or something. It honestly might be Cobalion. Like you don't have as much immediate power, but you have more bulk. You're at a similar speed tier. You have very similar coverage moves. And yeah, if you pair it with something that can raise its attack, or you run Swords Dance or something, it's like a decent approximation. Torquel. So the truth is that nothing really plays like Torquel. In terms of how you would use it, it was most of the time going to be a Trick Room Sweeper. You would try and bring it in with a couple of turns of Trick Room, so you could just click Eruption in the Sun. And that was really hard to stop, is the truth. It was a great Trick Room Sweeper. It's one of the only Eruption users. I think the other one is Nothing. Yeah, like it's the only Eruption user currently legal, so obviously nothing's going to play exactly the same. You pretty much just spam Fire-type attacks. Probably the closest thing, and this isn't a big surprise, but the closest thing is going to be Ninetales. Ninetales it's like its stats are much worse. It's in a weird speed tier where it's a pace 100. The special attack isn't that high. I think Specs Ninetales is okay. It's fine if you don't want to set Trick Room up as a Sun alternative. It's nowhere near as good as Torquel. The lack of bulk really hurts it, because in Torquel you normally run max HP, you've got a great physical defense stat, so you can normally stick around for a couple attacks anyway. With Ninetales, like, your bulk's not really there, and you normally invest in speed and power. And your power, like, needs specs to be boosted anyway, which means you normally don't run, like, Protect. So it's nowhere near as good, but if you were running, like, a Sun team and you really wanted to use it, I guess this is the closest thing, probably. I don't really know what else plays with it. Like, I don't... Because the thing about Torquel is it's not just about the Sun, it's also about the damage output, so... Yeah, like, if you really want strong spread moves, like, maybe there's other strong spread Pokemon that you could consider. Like, I mean, I know that there is, like, Life Orb, Hyper Voice, Primarina, or Sylveon maybe could be decent, but in terms of, like, what Torquel really does, which is spam Fire-type attacks in the Sun, Ninetales is kind of your only alternative to that role. Venusaur. This is a tough one. Like, the thing is that all the, like, so many grass types were removed. Basically, this was like an offensive grass-type Pokemon, special attacker that could Sleep Powder things. So, there aren't really many good replacements. This is a poor approximation. Normally, Venusaur either ran Life Orb, or it ran Sash, or another defensive item like Wide Lens to try and hit Sleep Powders. The closest things you're going to get are probably, like, Executor. Realistically, regular Executor with Chlorophyll. Does this thing get Chlorophyll? No, it doesn't. Yeah, I think regular Executor with Sash, Chlorophyll. Like, you can run Sleep Powder, Leaf Storm, Psychic, Protect if you wanted. Like, it's not going to be perfect. It's probably going to be pretty bad, truthfully. I think Harvest Executor is much better. But you do a high special attack stat. You do power yourself up with your terrains if you Dynamax. It's not a great approximation, but it's kind of the best you have. The other one, if you want the exact same typing, is Vileplume. But it's just, like... Oh, shoot. Sorry, I keep hitting that. It's just so much worse. Like, comparing Vileplume to Venusaur is, like... I don't know. It's much slower, so you have to be... I mean, actually, in this metagame, you probably don't have to be timid. But you might want to be timid. I forgot this was a move. After You is something you can do, but without Torquel, it doesn't really, like, it kind of loses its thing. You can get some things that Venusaur can't do, like, you can see here, you get Pollen Puff. You obviously have Sleep Powder, which Venusaur can do. I think you have Weather Ball. Sleep Powder, like I mentioned. You don't get Weather Ball. Yeah, I mean, you get Terrain Pulse. Okay, I mean, like I said, it's kind of Garbo. Like, it's the best, like, it's the same typing, it's the same ability, it has a lot of the same moves, but it's nowhere near as good, in my opinion. But yeah, it's like, Venusaur, like, again, the offensive Pokemon are the hardest to replace, in my opinion. And last but not least, we have Whimsicon. So, Whimsicon was kind of the premier Tailwind setter of the format. It also had good other support moves: Taunt, Protect, Trick, Eject Button, Helping Hand, Fake Tears, Charm, Tickle. Normally we're in Prankster, Tailwind, Protect, Moonblast, +1. Yeah, it basically just took advantage of Prankster Tailwind to immediately buff the speed of whatever it was next to. I would say that probably the best replacement for Whimsicon is probably Talonflame. It's kind of the only remaining Prankster Tailwind setter, and although it's a lot worse, like, it's still a Pokemon, it's still, you know, it's still a Tailwind setter, and you can use it just as a Tailwind bot if you want to play an offensive team with, like, Choice Band Dracovish, or maybe Life Orb Porygon Z, or stuff like that. Typically going to be good on, like, any team that appreciates Tailwind, aka teams that are kind of frail but hit really hard. Other Tailwind setters are like Drifblim, but without the terrains, they're not very good. Braviary, Mandibuzz, Noivern. Like, Noivern's probably the other one that I would say is somewhat similar. Talonflame also can play a support role, like if you want to run Will-O-Wisp on it or Taunt. Like, you can run Tailwind, Taunt, Protect, Flare Blitz, or Brave Bird Talonflame, and that's still, like, a solid set. I mean, your stats are much worse, and you don't really want to be attacking with... Like, you'd rather be attacking with Moonblast over Brave Bird or Flare Blitz, especially because you don't really want to run Sash on Talonflame, but that can be a good thing as well. So maybe, like, Talonflame, Urshifu, Porygon Z are all, like, strong offensive Pokemon, and that way you can run Sash somewhere else. So, yeah. I think, honestly, that's all I have to say. I didn't cover, like, the Pokemon that weren't top 10 in usage, but were banned anyway, like Mimikyu and those Pokemon, because, yeah, like, I figured I'll just do top 10 for VGC, but let me know if this is helpful. I was trying to think of something that could be helpful to everyone, because I know, like, the format changes in less than a week, so I know people are kind of, like, apprehensive about what's to come. So I hope this is kind of able to give you, maybe at least start thinking about, if you want to keep a team similar to what you're using, maybe trying to think about how you would slot around some of those pieces, but, yeah. I think that's all I have to say. Let me know if you like this video, and I'll see you next time. Peace.